So let me say this as clearly as I can. If someone systematically dismantles your identity, hijacks your nervous system, erases your memory, and isolates you from every support system you have, rewires your perception of reality, and leaves you suicidal, that's not a breakup, it's a crime, and it should be charged as one. What survivors of narcissistic psychological abuse experience is not a dysfunction, it is a crime, and it must be named as such. The current language, toxic, gaslighting, love bombing, discarding, devaluation, doesn't even begin to touch what really happens. These are anesthetic terms, invented to make the unspeakable trauma digestible for a culture that still thinks that abuse only counts if you can photograph the bruises. But what narcissistic abusers do to the victim is clinically devastating. It causes irreversible neurological trauma, it destroys identity, and it severs agency. And it leaves survivors not just broken, but cognitively dismantled. The truth is simple. This is psychological homicide, and under the Voiceless Justice Act, it's a felony. Let me be clear about what it looks like. I have codified narcissistic abuse into 8 stages of narcissistic psychological warfare, drawn directly from declassified CIA materials, specifically the Kubark Interrogation Manual and the MK Ultra Behavioral Control Protocols. These aren't metaphors, they're legally structured stages of coercive entrapment, neurological manipulation, and psychological annihilation. The 8 stages of narcissistic psychological warfare. 1. Indoctrination. Grooming the victim for capture. The abuser begins a relationship by mirroring the victim's core values, identity, and life story. This isn't love. This is weaponized mirroring, a form of intelligent gathering that simulates intimacy. Number 2, psychological breakdown, stripping the identity. Through charm, pressure, and targeted reinforcement, the abuser dismantles the victim's previous attachments, core beliefs, and social protection. This often when the abuser moves in or escalates commitment, triggering attachment hijacking. Number 3, psychological enslavement, creating dependency. The survivor is conditioned into a state of reward and punishment, where the abuser becomes the only source of validation or relief. The victim begins to rely on the abuser for emotional, psychological, and financial survival. Number 4, mental reprogramming, controlling perception. This is when the abuser manipulates the victim's entire reality. Through cognitive deception and data mining for coercive leverage and feature faking, the survivor's perception of self, time, and memory becomes distorted. Number 5, psychological punishment, crushing resistance. When the survivor begins to question, leave, or resist, the abuser deploys rage, humiliation, abandonment, triangulation, and reputational warfare. The goal is to collapse autonomy and reestablish control. Number 6, psychological submission, enforcing helplessness. The victim is now incapacitated. They believe they can't leave. They believe that no one will believe them. The abuser's narrative has overtaken theirs, and they're surrounded by silence, confusion, and complicity. Number 7, psychological captivity, ensuring long-term control. The abuser sabotages new connection, weaponizes therapy, controls reputation, and spreads disinformation so that even long after the separation, the survivor remains isolated and discredited. And number 8, it's not discarding, it's destruction and erasure, the final betrayal. The abuser completes the cycle by annihilating the survivor's identity. This includes false accusations, smear campaigns, financial ruin, coercive litigation, and abandonment in the survivor's darkest hour. For most, it ends in institutionalization, homelessness, and suicide. This is not interpersonal dysfunction, it's neurological warfare, and under the Voiceless Justice Act, these crimes are punishable under 2 newly defined felony charges. 1, psychological homicide, defined as a willful targeting dismantling of an individual's identity, memory, and agency through coercive psychological abuse, resulting in the permanent loss of cognitive function, suicide, or death. It is to what the psyche, to what murder is to the body, and is prosecutable. Neurological battery. It's defined as the intentional infliction of trauma-induced neurological injury through repeated acts of psychological manipulation, perception control, or coercive dependency, equivalent to physical battery, and its legal standing under the Voiceless Justice Act. If this language sounds extreme to you, it's because the abuse has been successfully minimalized for so long that we have lost our collective sense of scale. We no longer recognize the severity of harm that doesn't leave a physical wound, but survivors do. We feel it every day in our nervous systems, in our medical records, and our self-erasure, and the graveyards of people who didn't survive this abuse. I created the Heal Loudly movement because no institution, no system, and no community would name what was done to me. I had to write the language, I had to write the books, and now I'm writing the law. So now I'm calling on legislators, prosecutors, clinicians, and survivors everywhere to step into the truth. Narcissistic abuse is not emotional maturity. It's psychological warfare, it's fatal, and it needs to be prosecutable because we're not getting over it, we're naming it, and we're not asking permission from anybody anymore.